Chapter 1. The moment the CEO, Victoria Hawthorne, brought her white moonlight home, I was standing there with a spatula in hand, about to ask if I should add a few more dishes for dinner. That's when the white moonlight pointed at me and declared, "I knew it, everything in the novels is true. The second I went abroad, you found a substitute to keep in your house, huh?" I glanced down at my chef's whites and the spatula in my hand. A substitute? Nobody told me about that part of the job description. Before I could even process it, the white moonlight, Ethan Whitfield, continued his tirade. "No wonder you ignored me all these years I was abroad. It's because you already had a new lover by your side, completely casting your old flame aside. And now that I'm back, you can't even bear to send this substitute away. Fine, I'll be the one to leave and let you two be happy together." Watching Ethan's furious display, I was completely dumbfounded. Seriously, what script was this? Wasn't I just a chef, hired by CEO Victoria Hawthorne for a 7-figure annual salary to cook for her at her private mansion and help manage her chronic stomach issues? How did I suddenly become a new lover and a substitute? Victoria herself couldn't help but frown. "Ethan, what nonsense are you talking about? You were only abroad for 3 months and I flew to see you every single week. How is that ignoring you? And this is Sincere Clark, the household chef. He's not whatever it is you're rambling about." "A chef?" A single tear slid down Ethan's cheek. "Who's ever seen a chef this young? I like to wear white, and he's wearing white. If he's not a substitute, what is he?" "Victoria, why do you feel the need to lie to me?" I looked down at my white chef's uniform, then at Ethan's white silk shirt. The corner of my eye started to twitch. The only thing these two garments had in common was that they were made of white fabric. I sighed and decided to speak up. "Mr. Whitfield, I really am a chef. If you don't believe me, you can check the kitchen. I have chicken soup simmering on the stove right now." But Ethan just covered his ears. "I don't want to hear it. Even if there is soup, you two must have staged it just to trick me." Victoria sounded exasperated. "Then what will it take for you to believe that Sincere is just the chef? Send him away." "Then I'll believe you," Ethan said, a smug look on his face as if he had seen through everything. "It's all written in the novels. The white moonlight and the substitute can never coexist. Otherwise, sooner or later, the substitute will take my place. Victoria, I don't want to lose you, so he has to leave." Hearing this, Victoria's frown deepened. She glanced at me hesitantly. Her stomach problems had only just started to improve under my care. She couldn't afford to lose my cooking now. But if she didn't send me away, it was clear Ethan wouldn't let it go. After a moment, Victoria made her decision. She walked over to me and said in a low voice, "Sincere, I know our agreement was for you to live in, but given the circumstances, I'm going to have to ask you to move into the luxury penthouse nearby. I'll double your reimbursement for commuting expenses, and I'll add 3 months' salary as compensation. How does that sound?" My eyes lit up instantly. Victoria's penthouse was only a 5-minute drive from the mansion. Not only would I get double the travel pay, but I'd also pocket 3 months' salary for free. This was a massive win. I nodded without a shred of hesitation. "No problem, Miss Hawthorne. Should I move now?" With that, I pulled out my phone to call a moving company. Victoria froze for a second, clearly surprised by how readily I agreed. A strange feeling flickered in her heart. She opened her mouth to say something, but in the end just nodded. "Yes, you can move now." The moving truck arrived quickly. As I was directing the workers with my luggage, Ethan strutted over, looking down his nose at me. "So what if you wormed your way in while I was gone, Sincere? In the end, you're the one leaving in disgrace. In Victoria's heart, I'm the only one who matters. No matter how hard you try, a substitute will always be just a substitute." I had just received the bank notification. A 7-figure compensation payment was sparkling on my screen. Suddenly, Ethan, the very person responsible for this windfall, started to look rather charming. I smiled and played along. Yes, of course. You're the most important person to Miss Hawthorne. I could never compare to you." Ethan snorted. "At least you know your place." He turned and walked away, chin held high. In the distance, I heard the housekeeper, Mrs. Davis, ask him which room he'd like to stay in. He answered without thinking, "I'll take the room Victoria filled with my photos, the one she uses to miss me." Mrs. Davis sounded confused. "I don't believe we have a room like that, sir." His voice immediately shot up. "How can there not be one? In the novels, after the white moonlight goes abroad, the CEO always has a special locked room that no one is allowed to enter, just to store photos of them. If you don't know, Just say so. How dare you say it doesn't exist? I couldn't quite hear the rest of it. I just shook my head and offered a silent, 2-second prayer for Mrs. Davis. Chapter 2. After moving into the penthouse, my life became remarkably leisurely. Aside from having to sneak back into the mansion every day with Mrs. Davis as my lookout to cook 3 meals for Victoria while avoiding Ethan's line of sight, my time was my own. While I was looking healthier and more relaxed by the day, Mrs. Davis was visibly wilting. During one of our clandestine handoffs, I finally had to ask her, "Mrs. Davis, has work at the mansion been that crazy lately? You look like you haven't had a good night's sleep in ages." Mrs. Davis let out a long sigh. "Don't even ask. Mr. Whitfield has been driving me insane. The first day he moved in, he demanded the boss fire me. The reason? Because I didn't inform him that he was the first man she had ever brought home. The next day, he asked me if the boss had gone 10 years without smiling since he left. All I did was show him a photo of Miss Hawthorne laughing during an interview a couple of days ago. And he got so angry he smashed my phone." As if a dam had broken, Mrs. Davis finally found someone to confide in, rattling off a week's worth of Ethan's antics. Listening to her pour it all out, a wave of relief washed over me. Thank God I moved into the penthouse on day 1. If I had to act in Ethan's daily melodrama, I'm sure I'd lose years off my life. But apparently I had celebrated too soon. Just a couple of days into my peaceful new life, my doorbell began ringing with the frantic urgency of a death summons. The moment I opened the door, Ethan shoved past me and stormed inside. He paraded around the apartment like a peacock surveying its territory, before declaring triumphantly, "No wonder you left so easily, so Victoria had another place to hide you all along." My eyebrow twitched. I just wanted him gone. "Mr. Whitfield, I am really just a chef. If you don't believe me, I can show you my employment contract." I pulled out the contract and showed it to him. When his eyes landed on the annual salary, his pupils shrank. "800,000? He sneered, snatched the contract from my hand and slapped it down on the coffee table. "What kind of chef makes that much money? This has to be your sugar baby allowance. I earn my money with my own 2 hands. His words were a direct insult. I'd had enough. I took out my phone and dialed Victoria. "Miss Hawthorne, can you please get your white moonlight under control?" A heavy sigh came from the other end of the line. "He found you? Put him on." Ethan took the phone with a dismissive smirk, but as he listened, his expression soured. Finally, he shot me a dirty look, muttered, "I get it," into the phone, and hung up. He lifted his chin, his arrogant posture returning. "You got lucky today, but don't think I'm letting you off the hook. Victoria is just temporarily blinded by you. Soon enough, she'll realize that you, the replica, will never compare to me." He stormed out after his threat, slamming the door so hard the wall shook. I briefly considered asking Victoria for some emotional distress compensation. To avoid any more drama with Ethan, I stayed away from the mansion for the next few days. I'd cook the meals and have Mrs. Davis pick them up in bento boxes to take to Victoria. One day, when Mrs. Davis came by, she brought not only the bento boxes but also a formal invitation to Ethan's welcome home party. Just looking at the gold-embossed invitation made my temples throb. I was about to refuse when Mrs. Davis added, "Ms. Hawthorne is at her wit's end with Mr. Whitfield. She said if you attend, you'll get 10 times the overtime pay." She gave me a look that said, "Some people have all the luck." My attitude changed instantly. "Overtime pay? Don't be silly. If Miss Hawthorne needs me, I'd go through hell and high water for her." The party was held at Victoria's mansion. When I arrived, Ethan was playing the piano. A soft spotlight shone on him, finally giving him a bit of that white moonlight aura. When the Kensington Scion and other high society titans who were attending saw me, they immediately gathered around. "Mr. Clark, are you the head chef for tonight's banquet? What a treat for us. Mr. Clark, have you considered a new position recently? My mother has been craving your cooking." The piano music stopped abruptly. All eyes instinctively turned to Ethan. He picked up a microphone, his eyes blazing as he looked at the crowd around me. "Let me introduce myself. I am Victoria Hawthorne's true white moonlight. The person you're fawning over is nothing but a low-class substitute. If you're going to suck up to someone, make sure you pick the right person." "You wouldn't want to back the wrong horse." The guests exchanged baffled looks, then turned back to me and resumed their pleasantries. Ethan was convinced that I had somehow bought their loyalty during his absence. He was furious. But then a thought seemed to strike him, and a cold sneer formed on his lips. He straightened his suit and walked over, his expression shifting to a mocking smile. My performance just now was quite good, but I hear that Mr. Clark is an even more masterful pianist. Why don't you play a piece to liven things up? If you refuse, it means you're looking down on everyone here. Chapter 3. As he said this, Ethan wore the expression of someone eagerly anticipating a good show. He had already done his research. Sincere Clark was completely tone-deaf. Forget the piano, he couldn't even play a coin straight. If he went up to play, he was bound to make a fool of himself in front of everyone. Then Victoria would finally see how little this substitute resembled him. Ethan could already picture my humiliation, a smug look spreading across his face. But I replied without a moment's thought, "You heard wrong. I can't play the piano at all." Ethan's triumphant expression froze. He stared at me in disbelief. "You're just admitting it? Don't substitutes in the novels always try to imitate the white moonlight, even if they're terrible at it? Why aren't you following the script?" By the end, he was starting to lose his composure. This was his welcome home party, meticulously planned for the sole purpose of publicly embarrassing Sincere Clark. Just then, Victoria finished up her work and came over. Seeing his flushed face, she asked with concern, "What's wrong?" He immediately grabbed her hand. "Victoria, Sincere is bullying me." Victoria frowned and looked at me. I quickly held up my hands. "I did not." The surrounding guests chimed in, explaining to Victoria what had happened. She rubbed her temples, looking visibly exhausted. "Just go play something. I'll raise your overtime pay to 20 times the usual rate." A huge smile broke out on my face. "Miss Hawthorne, you're too generous." I walked over to the piano. My fingers banged on the keys randomly, producing a sound that was a world away from the melody Ethan had played earlier. Ethan grinned, looking around expectantly, ready to savor the sight of everyone laughing at me. However, the guests simply clinked their glasses and chatted amongst themselves as if they hadn't heard a thing. He shot to his feet, incredulous. "Why aren't you laughing at Sincere Clark? Why aren't you calling him a low-class nobody who doesn't belong here?" One of the guests looked at him confused. "He just can't play the piano. What's there to laugh about? Besides, piano skills aren't the measure of a person. Mr. Clark may not be a pianist, but his cooking is on par with a state banquet. Everyone has things they're not good at. You have to allow for people's imperfections." Ethan was livid. "But your role as the background extras is to laugh at the humiliated substitute. Why aren't you laughing?" The air instantly grew so quiet you could hear the bubbles in a champagne flute. The Kensington scion let out a cold laugh. "It seems Miss Hawthorne's hospitality is so exclusive that we're only fit to be background props. In that case, we won't stay and be an eyesore." Most of the guests began to leave. No matter how much Victoria apologized, they wouldn't stay. Victoria's head was spinning, but Ethan was still shouting, "Let them go, I'm Victoria's white moonlight. Once they've offended me, tomorrow I'll have Victoria ruin them all at that." The few remaining guests decided to leave as well, casting a look at Ethan as if he were a lunatic before walking out. The welcome home party ended in a complete fiasco. I was about to leave myself when Ethan grabbed my wrist. "You can't go, Victoria. This party turned out this way because Sincere Clark wanted to frame me and see me humiliated. You have to punish him for me." Victoria's face darkened, the disappointment in her eyes impossible to hide. "Ethan, can you please stop this? When did you become like this?" Ethan's face went white. "You're saying this to me just to defend this substitute? You say I've changed, Victoria, but aren't you the one who's changed? It seems you've chosen him over me. You'd better not regret it with that." He snatched his jacket and stormed out of the mansion. I patted Victoria's shoulder sympathetically. "You have my condolences. Also, don't forget to wire me that overtime pay." Chapter 4. Just as I was about to head out, I saw Victoria's face turn pale. She was clutching her stomach tightly, a clear sign her condition had flared up again. Now I couldn't leave. I quickly helped her to the sofa and went to the kitchen to make her some soothing porridge. After I looked after her all night, her complexion finally improved. I stretched, and as I was about to leave the mansion, I saw Ethan pacing outside the front door. It was obvious that because Victoria hadn't chased after him last night, he was too proud to come back in on his own. When he saw me, his face twisted in disbelief. "I was only gone for one night, and Victoria was already so desperate to have you over. Sincere Clark, you're far more cunning than I ever imagined. But don't get too smug. I have plenty of ways to deal with you. I had no energy left to engage with Ethan. I felt like talking to him would actually lower my IQ. As I was about to walk away, Ethan seemed to make a decision and rushed into the mansion. Victoria, after a night of reflection, I realize I was wrong. I understand now that Sincere is important to you, and I won't try to drive him away anymore. Please, can you forgive me? Seeing Ethan back down, Victoria's expression softened. I'm glad you've come to understand. In that case, Sincere, you should move back into the mansion. I'll be needing you quite a bit these next few days. I knew she was referring to her stomach condition, but Ethan clearly misunderstood again. Seeing that Victoria didn't contradict the idea and even used his apology as an excuse to bring me back, his face grew even paler. He shot me a look filled with resentment. But a moment later, a malicious smile spread across his face. My brow twitched. I had a bad feeling that things were about to get turbulent again. While I was on edge, Mrs. Davis seemed to have found an ally. Every day she would sidle up to me in the kitchen and whisper her complaints about Ethan. One time, just as she finished a story, Ethan's voice rang out from behind us. Victoria, look at Sincere. You pay him so much money, and he's still flirting with other women. The money he was referring to was the sugar baby allowance. Victoria didn't catch the implication, but she frowned instinctively. Mrs. Davis, please be mindful of your boundaries while managing the household. Mrs. Davis scurried out of the kitchen with an embarrassed smile. When Ethan saw that Victoria had only reprimanded Mrs. Davis and not me, his gaze grew even more resentful. One day, as I was in the kitchen preparing lunch, Ethan suddenly burst in and snatched the knife from my hand. Sincere Clark, your smug days are over. Today is the day you get kicked out of this house for good with that. He used the knife to puncture a blood pack hidden at his waist, then immediately cried out in pain. It hurts so much, Sincere. I was just trying to help you chop some vegetables. Why did you stab me? Hearing the commotion, Victoria rushed downstairs and caught Ethan as he was theatrically collapsing to the floor. Her brows knitted together in a tight knot. Sincere, I know you've been wronged lately, but you can't resort to violence. I calmly pointed upwards. Miss Hawthorne, there's a security camera in the kitchen. Instead of accusing me, perhaps you should watch the footage first. Ethan clearly hadn't anticipated this. A flash of panic crossed his eyes. Just as Victoria was about to check the security feed, he grabbed her arm, his cries becoming more desperate. Victoria, I'm in so much pain, forget the camera for now. Please, just take me to the hospital. At his plea, Victoria immediately had someone drive Ethan to the hospital. I thought for a moment, asked Mrs. Davis to handle the security footage, and then followed them. Inside the examination room, Ethan saw that we were alone and slipped a credit card into the doctor's hand. In a minute, you're going to say I was stabbed and now have kidney failure. I'll need a transplant, and you'll say we have to take a kidney from the man who came with me. Got it? Chapter 5. The doctor froze, the card in his hand, his expression a mixture of confusion and disbelief, but Ethan, believing everything was settled, immediately had the doctor wheel him out of the examination room. Outside, Victoria rushed forward as soon as she saw Ethan in the wheelchair. Doctor, how is Ethan? Is it serious? Should I contact renowned specialists from abroad to perform surgery? The doctor opened his mouth but seemed at a loss for words. Ethan shot the doctor a look of pure frustration, then spoke himself in a weak voice. The doctor says the stabbing caused kidney failure. I need a transplant immediately. I think Sincere's kidney would be a good match. He injured me, so he should pay the price. He glanced at me smugly, apparently certain that Victoria would have my kidney removed for his sake. I was speechless. Ethan went through all this trouble just to get to a hospital and demand my kidney. Did he really think this was a novel where laws don't apply? Victoria frowned at him. Let's not even get into whether Sincere's kidney is a match. Even if it was, forcibly taking someone's kidney without their consent is illegal. Ethan, how could you even think of something like that? Ethan's smug expression vanished. He stood there, mouth agape, utterly speechless, as if he couldn't believe Victoria wasn't following his script. At that moment, the doctor seemed to snap back to reality, letting out a sigh of relief. He cleared his throat and handed the card back to Victoria. Miss Hawthorne, here's what happened. Mr. Whitfield just tried to bribe me with this card, asking me to lie and say he has kidney failure. He even demanded I take a kidney from Mr. Clark here. If I hadn't heard your response just now, I was about to call the police. I'm relieved to see you're a law-abiding person. That sets my mind at ease. When you have a moment, please talk to Mr. Whitfield. He shouldn't be entertaining such dangerous ideas, nor should he be treating the hospital like a playground, smearing fake blood on himself and wasting medical resources. With that, the doctor returned to his office. Just before the door closed, I heard him mutter, "People these days have read too many novels, it's rotted their brains. Tries to bribe me with a card and doesn't even give me the PIN. Thinks this is a movie." I desperately wanted to laugh, but seeing the grim look on Victoria's face, I knew it wasn't the right time, and forced myself to hold it in. Ethan saw the disappointment in Victoria's eyes and began to stammer frantically, "Victoria, look at all the blood I lost. How could it be fake? Don't listen to that doctor's nonsense. He must be some relative of Sincere's helping him out so I can't get a transplant and die from kidney failure. Can you really bear to let me die just because of a misunderstanding?" Victoria's temples were throbbing. Just as she was about to speak, my phone buzzed. It was the security footage from Mrs. Davis. I played the video and handed it to Victoria. The screen clearly showed the entire sequence, Ethan snatching the knife, puncturing the blood pack, and collapsing to the floor to feign injury. Victoria held the phone in front of Ethan. "Now what do you have to say for yourself?" Ethan's face was pale, but his eyes quickly welled with tears. "Victoria, I know I was wrong, but I just didn't want you to keep looking at a substitute when I'm supposed to be your white moonlight. I've told you so many times," Victoria said, her gaze sharp. "Sincere Clark is the chef I hired, not your substitute." It was the first time she had ever spoken to him like that. Ethan was so stunned he even stopped pretending to be hurt, freezing in place with a look of utter disbelief. Victoria turned to me, her voice heavy. "Sincere, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you today without checking the facts." I sighed. This was hardly the first time I'd been dragged into Ethan's drama. From the substitute misunderstanding to the party fiasco, and now this frame-up. I was here to earn a 7-figure salary cooking, not to star in a melodrama. "Ms. Hawthorne, I accept your apology, but I've decided to resign." Victoria was taken aback and quickly tried to persuade me to stay. "I can raise your salary again, and I promise I will handle Ethan. He won't bother you anymore." "It's not about the money," I said, shaking my head. "I'm just a cook. I want to cook in peace, not get dragged into some drama about being a substitute every day." No matter how much Victoria pleaded, my decision was firm. She finally sighed in defeat. "All right, I respect your decision. Your final salary and compensation will be transferred to you as soon as possible." After returning to the Hawthorne mansion from the hospital, I quickly packed my things to leave. Mrs. Davis helped me, sighing, "If you leave, what's to become of me?" She had been the housekeeper since Victoria's parents' time and had come to see the mansion as her own home. She couldn't bear to leave. I patted her shoulder. "Mrs. Davis, it's too early to sigh now. Just imagine if Ms. Hawthorne and Mr. Whitfield get married. That's when your real suffering will begin." At the thought, Mrs. Davis looked as if the world had gone dark. As I left the mansion with my luggage, I glanced back one last time. Victoria was standing on the second-floor balcony, watching me with a complex expression, her thoughts unreadable. I gave a small wave, then turned and got into the taxi. Finally free from Ethan's theatrics, no longer having to sneak around to cook, life couldn't get any better. Chapter 6. After moving back into the apartment I had rented before, I gave myself a well-deserved break. I slept in every day, and when I woke up, I experimented with new recipes. Life was blissfully relaxing. I thought my chapter with the Hawthorns was closed, but 3 days later my phone exploded with notifications. A friend sent me a link to a trending topic, the headline blaring, "Scheming substitute kicked out of mansion, runs off with valuables." I clicked on it. The video was of me packing my bags a few days earlier. Ethan must have filmed it, secretly, deliberately zooming in on the designer bags and watches in my suitcase. He had added a caption, "I go abroad for just a few months, and some shameless man disguises himself to look like me and seduce my Victoria. He even uses her money to buy luxury goods. Now that I've exposed him, he's run off in disgrace. Tell me, everyone, as the rightful one, shouldn't I demand he return everything?" The comment section was in an uproar. "Oh my God, is this a real-life substitute romance novel plot? Using someone else's money to buy luxury goods? So shameless, I feel so bad for the white moonlight. The substitute usurped his place for so long. Give the stuff back. People who get things without working for them are disgusting." As I was reading the comments, I received a text from an unknown number. Sincere Clark, I bet you've seen the news. If you know what's good for you, return the luxury items Victoria bought you immediately. Otherwise, I don't mind making you even more famous. Reading Ethan's text, I almost laughed out loud from sheer anger. I had bought all those luxury items with my own salary. With a 7-figure income, did he really think I couldn't afford a few designer goods? Just as I was about to reply, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Ethan, it was Victoria. Sincere, I saw what's happening online. I'm so sorry, this is because of Ethan again. Her voice was apologetic. I'll have my PR team issue a clarification for you and sue the people spreading rumors. I immediately declined. There's no need. If you get involved, it'll just confirm their story that I'm your substitute. It will only make things messier. I have my own way of clearing this up, so you don't have to worry about it, Miss Hawthorne. After hanging up, I opened my computer and posted a screenshot of my employment contract with Victoria. The contract clearly stated my annual salary of $800,000 and my position as a private chef. Next, I posted the purchase receipts for all the luxury goods. Each one marked with the date and amount, all paid for with my own bank card after I started the job. I added a simple statement. My name is Sincere Clark. I was hired by Ms. Victoria Hawthorne as a private chef for an annual salary of $800,000. I am not a so-called substitute. The luxury items in the video were all purchased with my legal income. The claim that I ran off with valuables is false. The truth speaks for itself. To those spreading rumors, please have some self-respect. Once my clarification was posted, the comment section went silent for a few seconds, then exploded. Whoa, a chef with an $800,000 salary. What kind of god-tier cooking skills does he have? I was wrong, I'm so sorry with that salary. Buying these luxury items is just pocket change for him. Turns out this isn't a substitute drama. My worldview was just too small so that Ethan guy was just making things up. His behavior is so bizarre. To my surprise, several of the high society figures who had attended the welcome home party, like the Kensington Scion and other magnates, also reposted my clarification. The Kensington Scion, Mr. Clark's culinary skills are on par with a state banquet. My mother nags me daily to try and poach him. An $800,000 salary is not high at all. Mr. Armstrong of Constellation Corp. I tasted Mr. Clark's Buddha jumps over the wall soup once and I still dream about it. Mr. Clark, are you considering opening a private restaurant? I'll be the first to sign up for a membership. Mr. Lewis of Apex Group, I'll fight anyone who slanders Mr. Clark if he's a substitute. Then what does that make all of us who are lining up to hire him? With these titans of industry speaking up, the public opinion completely flipped. The conversation shifted from gossip to a chorus of hungry foodies. If all these big shots are vouching for him, imagine how good his food must be. Please, Sincere Clark, open a restaurant. I'd wait in line for 3 days, and 3 nights. I feel bad for Sincere. He was tormented for so long as a substitute, and then got slandered. I couldn't help but smile as I read the comments. Not only had I avoided a crisis, but I had also gotten a massive wave of free advertising. Just as I was about to reply to a comment saying I was considering opening a private kitchen, I received another anonymous message. It came with several photos and an audio recording. The photos showed Ethan at a hospital abroad, accompanying someone to a prenatal checkup, along with a signed consent form for an abortion. The recording was a conversation between him and a friend. I wasn't abroad to clear my head. I got someone pregnant after a drunken night and had to take her overseas to quietly deal with it. And Victoria, that fool, she actually thought I just wanted a change of scenery. She even flew to see me every week. What can I say? That's the charm of being the white moonlight. I raised an eyebrow. This was the perfect ammunition for a counterattack, delivered right to my doorstep. Since Ethan refused to let me go, I saw no reason to be polite. After redacting some sensitive information, I anonymously posted the evidence online with the caption, "Some people call themselves a white moonlight. What were they really doing during their 3 months abroad?" Chapter 7. The moment the evidence was posted, the internet erupted. Ethan's lies were exposed. The netizens who had sympathized with him did a complete 180, flooding his page with comments calling him manipulative and a pathological liar. Victoria was on a business trip abroad. During a rare moment of downtime, she asked her assistant, "How is Sincere's reputation online now? Is anyone still attacking him? If so, have the company's legal department handle it directly." The assistant shook his head. "No one is criticizing Mr. Clark anymore, but He hesitated for a moment before showing Victoria the news on his phone. As Victoria read, her frown grew deeper and deeper. She flew home the same night her work was finished. She threw the phone down in front of Ethan, her expression ice cold as she demanded,
"Ethan, what is all of this?"
Ethan looked at the photos and the transcript of the recording, his face draining of color, but he still tried to deny it. "It's sincere, Clark, he's framing me. All of this is fake. Your signature is on the medical forms, and that's your voice on the recording."
"And you're still trying to deny it?"
Victoria's voice was filled with disappointment. "I was truly wrong about you all these years. Mrs. Davis, pack his things and escort him out. He is never to set foot in this house again." Ethan was stunned for a second. Then he suddenly started laughing.
"I get it. The plot has now reached the point where the main characters are driven apart by the substitutes' schemes, and their misunderstanding deepens."
"Victoria, you'll regret kicking me out. And when you realize it's me you love, and come begging me to take you back, I won't forgive you so easily." He was so certain that Victoria would eventually come groveling back to him that he packed his bags with an air of, "I'll just wait for you to beg for my return," and left the mansion without a backward glance. Victoria watched him go, letting out a weary sigh. She looked around the now empty room and suddenly missed the warmth and life it used to have. After a long hesitation, she picked up her phone and dialed my number. "Sincere, about the situation with Ethan, I need to apologize to you again." My tone was calm. "Ms. Hawthorne, you've already apologized once. I assume that's not the real reason you called today, is it?" "You see right through me," she said. She paused for a moment before continuing. "I've been reading the comments online lately, and I wanted to ask, have you considered opening a private restaurant? I can provide the investment. You won't have to put in a single penny, and all the profits will be yours." I was taken aback for a moment, then couldn't help but laugh. "Miss Hawthorne, is this your roundabout way of trying to hire me back?" "No, I just think your culinary talent should be shared with more people." Her voice sounded a little unnatural. "And besides, my stomach, it really can't get used to anyone else's cooking." I thought about it. Opening my own restaurant was already part of my plan. Having an investor who wouldn't interfere was an offer too good to refuse. "All right, but I have one condition. You cannot interfere with my business operations as an investor, and when you want to eat here, you'll have to make a reservation and wait in line like everyone else. No special treatment." "Deal," Victoria agreed instantly. With Victoria's help, my private restaurant opened and became a roaring success. True to her word, Victoria never interfered with my business and always patiently waited in line for a table. She came for all 3 meals a day, and life felt almost like it did back when I was cooking for her at the mansion. Only this time, there was no Ethan to disrupt the peace. I once asked Victoria out of curiosity why Ethan had never tried to contact her again. The expression on her face was as if she'd swallowed a fly. It took her a long time to answer. Before he left, he said the plot had advanced to the stage where the main characters are driven apart by the substitute, and that he was certain I would eventually have a revelation and come chasing after him. I couldn't help but sigh. Ethan Whitfield, ever the dedicated, dramatic white moonlight. Chapter 8. After that, Victoria and I tacitly agreed never to bring up Ethan again. Whenever Victoria came to the restaurant, she would bring me a small gift. Sometimes it was just a wildflower she'd picked from the side of the road. Other times it was a new piece of jewelry from a local designer. One day, as I accepted a gift, I teased her. "When you hired me before, it only cost you $800,000 a year. Now, not only do you pay to eat here, but you also bring me gifts. I'm guessing this is costing you far more than that." She smiled warmly. "As long as you like it, that's all that matters." Meeting her gentle gaze, my heart suddenly started to pound. After 6 months of spending nearly every day together, Victoria came to the restaurant one evening with a massive bouquet of roses as her gift. I hesitated to accept it. "Victoria, do you know what giving someone roses means?" I asked. She nodded. "It means that, from now on, all my money is yours to manage. So, are you willing?" "Who wouldn't be willing to manage the money?" I smiled and nodded. Our relationship deepened quickly, and soon we decided to get married. The wedding was set for a sunny weekend, attended by our close friends, family, and the loyal patrons of my restaurant. As I stood in the dressing room in my suit preparing my vows, Mrs. Davis was dabbing her eyes in the corner. "You have no idea how thrilled I was when I heard Miss Hawthorne was marrying you. It's just wonderful. Thank goodness she didn't marry Mr. Whitfield. My future is no longer a pit of darkness. She clearly remembered what I had said the day I resigned, and her face was now full of relief. I paused, realizing it had been a very long time since I'd thought about Ethan at all. Speak of the devil. Just as I was standing at the altar with Victoria, about to exchange our rings, the doors to the hall were thrown open. Ethan burst in, his hair disheveled, a crazed look in his eyes. In his hand he held a glass bottle. Sincere Clark, you shameless substitute, not only did you drive a wedge between me and Victoria, but now you've interrupted the part of the story where she's supposed to come groveling back to me. You stole my wedding, go to hell! He screamed and lunged at me, raising the bottle to splash its contents. It was acid. Thankfully, Victoria had anticipated something like this and hired extra security. They immediately rushed forward and tackled him. Pinned to the ground, Ethan was still screaming maniacally. Why? I'm the White Moonlight, the male lead. The story was supposed to be about Victoria and me overcoming misunderstandings and living happily ever after. Why did it turn out like this? The police arrived quickly and took him away. Watching him being dragged off, still hysterical, I couldn't help but sigh. To this day, he was still living in his own soap opera, completely detached from reality. Seeing the bottle of acid on the floor, Victoria squeezed my hand tightly, her fear palpable. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said, smiling to reassure her. I even felt composed enough to joke. Ethan is always so convinced he's the male lead from a novel and you're the heroine. You're not really, are you? I mean, you're a powerful CEO named Victoria. It sounds straight out of a romance novel. Victoria gave a wry smile and leaned in to kiss my chin. Even if I am the heroine, you'll always be my hero. We looked at each other and smiled. As we exchanged rings, the hall filled with applause. Married life was simple and warm. Victoria's stomach problems completely healed, and her greatest joy became following me around the kitchen, occasionally tasting my dishes. My chain of private restaurants became more and more popular, but I still insisted on developing every new dish myself. During one interview, a reporter tried to stir up trouble. Mr. Clark, would you say your current success is because you managed to usurp the White Moonlight's position and gained Ms. Hawthorne's support? Victoria, who was sitting beside me, immediately scowled, ready to step in front of me and answer for me. But I gently held her back and smiled at the reporter. No one is ever just a substitute for someone else. My success today is simply because I'm a cook who loves to cook. The end.